Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, Catholic Answers has caused a little bit of a stir with this whole Father Justin controversy. If you're not familiar with this, Catholic Answers essentially launched a very short-lived AI priest apologetics bot. So the idea was that you could go to Catholic Answers and talk to quote-unquote Father Justin, who of course isn't a priest, and you could ask questions about the Catholic faith. Well, pretty quickly, it was very interesting to see people from all sides of the aisle of the faith, sort of even kind of liberal-leaning Catholics to traditional Catholics, all kind of thought it was a bad idea. And some people posted messages or, screenshots of their conversations with this AI bot called Father Justin, where strange things were being said. It seemed like they were getting absolution for their sins, and he was talking about where he was ordained and so forth. Point being, it caused a stir. And pretty quickly, Catholic Answers took down Father Justin. They left the AI functionality for apologetics, which we're going to talk about whether or not that's a good thing, and they took down Father Justin. And here's the actual message from Catholic Answers. This is from a tweet by Eric Sammons, and Eric wrote, "The people at Catholic Answers are good people, and a sign of being a good person is listening and responding to legitimate criticism as they are here." I do wish the folks at Catholic Answers would listen to legitimate criticisms about their push of evolutionary theory, but they tend to just sort of send their bulldogs to attack traditional Catholics like myself who believe what Catholics have always believed. But anyway, but here is the statement from Christopher Check, and I'm going to read this. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen. I don't know if I can make this much bigger. It just seems, it doesn't really make it bigger there. Oh, there you go. He said, he quotes Chesterton, and I love Chesterton, and I think Christopher Check is a Chestertonian, so there's definitely an affinity there. And he said, "There are no bad things, only bad uses of things," G.K. Chesterton reminds us. As a media apostolate, we feel very strongly about finding new ways to share the gospel, as our founder, Carl Keating, did many years ago when he started Catholic.com to put that wild new technology of the internet to the service of Catholic truth. Fair enough. Recently, my colleagues and I at Catholic Answers have received a good deal of helpful feedback concerning another new technology, our AI app, quote-unquote Father Justin. Prevalent among users' comments is criticism of the representation of the AI character as a priest. We chose the character to convey a quality of knowledge and authority, and also as a sign of the respect that all of us at Catholic Answers hold for our clergy. Many people, however, have voiced concerns about this choice. We hear these concerns, and we do not want the character to distract from the important purpose of the application, which is to provide sound answers to questions about the Catholic faith in an innovative way that makes good use of the benefits of quote-unquote artificial intelligence. They go on to say that they've decided to replace Father Justin with a lay character, etc., etc., etc. Changes will be coming. I thank you for your prayers for Catholic Answers and for the good work of our staff. Peace and all good. Christopher Check, President of Catholic Answers. So let's move beyond the sort of surface controversy, because in fairness to Catholic Answers, you can manipulate these sort of chatbots to say a lot of strange things. I don't think it was the intention of Catholic Answers to put out a AI priest that would feign to forgive sins and so forth, although that does seem like it would be a potential consequence, which is very strange that wasn't really thought about. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about this idea that Christopher Check quotes Chesterton, where there are no bad things, only bad uses of things. This is true. This is, objectively speaking, true. All that exists, at least in some way, is good. Even demons, who are created as they are angels, their angelic nature is good, but that they have fallen is bad. And that's their own personal choice. It's not because of God's active creative will that made them. The same is true for all things on the world, in the earth, substances and plants and animals and whatever materials. These things are good. They serve a purpose. Even things that are used for illicit drugs and narcotics, the same thing that goes into making sort of recreational cocaine is also used historically as a medicine for numbing and things like that for eye surgeries and stuff. And obviously it's been co-opted for bad reasons. And that's bad, but the leaf itself is not evil. And that's true of technology. You know, I have here a book. It's a biography of St. Edmund Campion that I keep encouraging you all to read. This book is written on paper. This is a good book. It was printed by a printer. That's a good thing. Printers have also been used to spread heresy. Just ask Martin Luther. The Protestant revolt was made largely possible because of the rapid dissemination of information that sort of was revolutionized because of the advent of the printing press. At the same time, St. Paul used the Roman postal system to send letters, and letters are a form of technology. I mean, you can see where I'm going with this. There are plenty of good uses of technology and bad uses of the same technology. So we can't really say that a technology per se is evil. We can say that there is a use of, or I should backtrack and say we can't really say that the things that are used to make a technology are evil. What we can really say is the application of those things in a particular technology can be used for evil. That's kind of the best way to put it. So really, I mean, the question is it good to use AI to do the work of evangelization? Put all your opinions about Catholic Answers aside. And I have strong opinions about some of their stuff. I think Tim Staples a month ago or so was on one of the call-in shows. Dr. K wrote about it. And Staples basically said the traditional Latin Mass was invented at the Council of Trent. It's like, how could you be so daft when you're a professional apologist? But anyway, so I do have problems with some of the stuff that they've put out. Trust me. But let's put all those opinions aside for a moment and ask ourselves, is using AI for apologetics, is this good? Well, we have to consider, what is AI? Well, artificial intelligence, which Christopher Check rightfully puts in quotes, it's not really an intelligence. Artificial intelligence it's really, really fancy Google on steroids. When you are chatting with these bots, you're asking questions, and it's rapidly searching the internet and archives and so forth to put together an answer that seems to be adequate for your question. So right there are problems with that, because the internet's really, really big. And yes, you can make these chatbots and you can sort of formulate them to how they're going to learn information and the databases they're going to search. But, recently, Charles Coulomb, a great Catholic scholar who I respect, and maybe you know his podcast with Vincent Franchini. It's called Off the Menu. I recommend everyone go listen to it. It's really fun. I've been listening to it for years. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. It's light and fun and airy, and you learn something, and it's great. And Charles Coulomb was telling a story on the show about how he had asked about, I think it was the Revolutionary War, and he was asking some questions, and the chatbot, which was either Microsoft's or Twitter's, one of the big ones, and he just kept getting this circular reasoning, and it kept coming back that, what he basically asked, like, what is the difference between a revolution and a coup or something like that? It was that kind of context. And the answer was, well, the American Revolution was good because it was for democracy, but that revolution was bad because it wasn't for democracy. And he's like, well, why is it good if it's for democracy? And the answer was something like, well, democracy is good, so therefore revolution for democracy is good. And it was just this back and forth circular reasoning. And he realized that, it really was just like asking a really sophisticated form of Google. And because it's got this database of information where it's searching what is widely available and synthesizing all these things to give you what seems like the most reasonable point, you're going to have some problems with the information you're going to get, because what's happening is that there is this formulaic mechanism that is essentially searching all of these pieces of information that are digitally available, and it's giving you what seems to be a consensus answer based on what's available. That's a problem when it comes to Catholic apologetics, because personally, I think what's going to happen is you're going to get to the point where you're going to have ambiguous answers. Of course you will. If you were to ask the bot something about a controversial aspect of Catholic doctrine, are you going to get a clear answer? maybe in some cases, but maybe in other cases, you're going to get sort of an in-between answer. Is the chatbot equipped to understand the various levels of dogma? So if you ask, like, what is the church's teaching on the death penalty, which Dr. K had asked the bot, you get the following answer, which seems to show a lack of understanding, if we can use that term, on behalf of the bot about what constitutes authoritative Catholic teaching. And let's just look at that quickly here. So here the other day, Dr. Peter Kwasniewski, subscribe to his Substack, by the way, Tradition Insanity. It's a wonderful publication. And I'll make this bigger. He asked these questions about the death penalty. And it goes, is the death penalty immoral? And the answer from this Father Justin, which will not be called Father Justin anymore, was the Catholic Church teaches that every life is sacred from conception to natural death. This belief extends to those who have committed grave sins or crimes. Pope Francis has revised the Catechism of the Catholic Church to state that the death penalty is inadmissible. This reflects a deeper understanding of human dignity, even in the face of grave sin. However, this does not negate the need for justice and the protection of innocent lives. The Church advocates for means of punishment that respect human dignity while still ensuring public safety. As it is written in Ezekiel, I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that they turn away from their ways and live. This is a modernist answer. This is not a good Catholic answer. It chose to use this citation from Ezekiel. It chose not to use the citation from Genesis, where Noah is instructed that, how's that quote go? It's about shedding of blood and his blood shall be shed. It's something that Dr. Fazer has talked about a lot. It's the title of his book. I'm apologizing for forgetting the way that it's written in Genesis, but it's a complete vindication of the death penalty. And so, here you go. It's choosing a particular verse that goes with a particular narrative. It's assuming that the Catechism of the Catholic Church is the arbiter of what has historically been called moral, immoral as far as doctrines are concerned, even though there's a short-sightedness here because this catechism has been edited multiple times, so clearly the thing can't be infallible. And Pope Francis's comment is one comment in a slew of comments that have been changing since essentially the time of John Paul II about the death penalty per se, and it doesn't match the consensus of what was always believed by the Church in all places and in all times, so the sensus fidelium. There are huge problems with this answer. The death penalty really is there's a reason why it's such a shibboleth, meaning sort of a dividing point in the Church, because it really is doctrinal. It's really it's indicative of an understanding of the levels of authoritative doctrine 101. Like, this is very basic. And it's really troubling that this answer has been given, but it matches a modernist conception of Catholic doctrine. So AI is, in the Catholic answer sense, is going to give you a modernist answer. It goes on to say, the death penalty contrary to human dignity? Yes, the Catholic Church believes that the death penalty is contrary to human dignity. Really? Okay. This is because every person, regardless of their actions, is created in the image and likeness of God. So he asks, the death penalty is contrary to the gospel. Indeed, goes on. Here's the money line. Were the popes wrong in the past to support the death penalty? The Church's understanding of moral truth develops over time, guided by the Holy Spirit. Right there. I'm sorry, AI Catholic answers. I can't trust you. I can't trust you in the slightest. That's not an answer. That's a cop-out. So AI is trained in copping out. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Were the popes wrong in the past? Yes or no? Well, it's really more complicated than that. The Church's understanding of moral truths develops over time, guided by the Holy Spirit. Yes, but the will of God does not change. So if the consensus for 20 centuries is one way and there's an aberration of that, that's not the Holy Spirit. That's not how that would work. Goes on to say the Church's past acceptance of the death penalty was based on the societal context and understanding of justice at the time. This is Modernism 101. This is Modernism 101. And I'll prove that to you real quickly here. So speaking of apologetics, this is Pascendi by Pope Pius X, the encyclical on modernism, condemning the thing, which I'm writing my book on. So at this point, I think I've read this thing like 30 times. I never want to read modernist philosophy again when I'm done this, because I swear it breaks your brain. But this, look at this. Let us see how this is right here. Let us see how the modernist conducts his apologetics. Let's read this. He says, the aim he sets before himself is to make the non-believer attain the experience of the Catholic religion, which according to the system is the basis of faith. There are two ways open to him, the objective and the subjective. The first of them proceeds from agnosticism. It tends to show that religion, and especially the Catholic religion, is endowed with such vitality as to compel every psychologist and historian of good faith to recognize that its history hides some unknown element. To this end, it is necessary to prove that this religion as it exists today is that which was founded by Christ. That is to say, that it is the product of the progressive development of the germ which he brought into the world. And here's the money line. Hence, it is imperative, first of all, to establish what this germ was, and this the modernist claims to be able to do by the following formula. Christ announced the coming of the kingdom of God, which was to be realized within a brief lapse of time, and of which he was to become the Messiah, the divine given agent and ordainer. Then it must be shown how this germ, always imminent and permanent in the bosom of the church, and here you go, has gone slowly developing in the course of history, adapting itself successively to the different mediums through which it was passed, different technologies, borrowing from them by vital assimilation all the dogmatic, cultural, ecclesiastical forms that served its purpose, while on the other hand, it surmounted all obstacles, vanquished all enemies, and survived all assaults and all combats. What is this saying? Here is the most important part. Developing in the course of history, adapting itself successfully to the different mediums through which it was passed, borrowing from them by vital assimilation all the dogmatic, cultural, and ecclesiastical forms that served its purpose whilst on the other hand, etc. So, let's look at Catholic Answers' answer here one more time and see how this matches. I'll make this bigger here and I'll pull this up again. The Church's understanding of moral truth develops over time. The Church's past acceptance of the death penalty was based on the societal context and understanding of justice at the time. Compare this to Pascendi, and what do we find? The developing in the course of history, adapting to the dogmatic, cultural, and ecclesiastical forms that served its purpose. So it's not that the death penalty used to be immoral, now it's not. It's that the church has not changed her opinion, but really, as the understanding in society in general has changed, the cultural forms, the dogmatic forms, and so forth, the church then adapts herself to those things and basically means what? The church moves with the times. Now, it'd be one thing if, for example, we're talking about something that was based on a purely scientific fact. For example, you do find real examples of this. Thomas Aquinas had an opinion about life in the womb, about abortion. He believed it was a crime, but there was this consensus or this constant belief from the Aristotelian conception that ensoulment, so the soul, was infused in the body at a later date. I believe it was 40 days for men, and I think it was 80 days for girls. Anyway, that was wrong. Nonetheless, it was still a crime, but it wasn't the same type of crime because it wasn't fully a person. That's obviously that's an error in fact. It's not an error in method on Aquinas' part because he's following the method based on what facts they had. So in that sense, sure, there's an error about scientific fact, and therefore, once that's established or once there's a consensus on that, then we apply that method consistently. But it wasn't that the church changed her understanding of what it meant that abortion was a crime. It's that there was an error in fact about when the person received a soul. But abortion was always wrong. The death penalty thing is not like that. It's not as if the church has figured out something new about people. And by the way, people that are receiving the death penalty aren't in the womb, so this wouldn't even apply. But this is just for instance. The death penalty, the church has not learned something new about the human person that God did not reveal to them in the Bible. This is a modernist conception that because the consensus based on these cultural adaptations is that the death penalty is wrong, therefore it's immoral now, but in the past it wasn't immoral based on what we knew. This is subjectivism. This is the idea that well, truth can change, but the modernist conception of truth changing is completely impossible to argue because they don't believe truth changes. They believe truth evolves. This is Teilhard de Chardin 101. This is complete modernism. And anyway, so this one answer alone on this fundamental issue, and bravo to Dr. K for looking this up, is an example of how this AI bot is going to give you modernist answers. So from that alone, it's really dangerous to be using AI for apologetics because it's going to give you wrong answers, because AI is not omniscient. It's a search engine, and it's compiling information that you find on these Catholic blogs and so forth and putting it as an answer. And the idea, which I found kind of troubling, is that they chose to use this priest to sort of, by their own words, give it this kind of authority, this authority we associate with a priest. That's really weird. Because there's no authority with AI at all. In fact, there should be a disclaimer on this AI thing saying, this is not, we cannot even guarantee that this is a teaching of the church. At least with the apologists on the radio, they're going to be doing their best to be citing the catechism and so forth, and they can be corrected in real time. People can call in and say, hold on, I don't know if that's true, and they can have a human conversation. That's not possible with AI. Also, the answers that are given on the radio, if a Catholic Answers apologist makes a mistake, which I've made mistakes in my podcast, we're all human. If a person makes a mistake, then he can be corrected and he can make a correction because it's public. But what's going to happen with this AI thing? You get this stupid modernist answer under the guise of it being authoritative because there's this priest bot, which I know they're getting rid of, but that was troubling that this was even a thing. And now this is disseminated. What? How do they retract this? They can't. This is out there, and people are going to just pass this around. And the AI bot has told them that the AI bot is modernist, and it's going to make people modernist. This is a big problem. So this gets to the more profound issue. No, technologies are not evil in and of themselves. We talked about this. It's like the classic argument: should you have gun control? Guns are not evil. Evil people do bad things with guns. It's like that kind of thing. But there is an argument to be made that certain technologies are an occasion for sin or stupidity, and they shouldn't be used for certain things. While one may be a researcher and an author or businessman or something and utilize the powers of AI for citations and ways to help, that's possible. I've never done that personally, but I can see it being useful for writing a book, for example. If I could get citations made and whatever, that would be quicker than me kind of looking through the books and typing it in. That would be faster, and I think that would be a welcome convenience if I'm being honest. But I'm going to tell you a story to illustrate this, why this is, I think, dangerous and why I don't think they should be using AI. First of all, because the reasons are modernist, so AI is modernist, which is annoying. When I was a teacher, when I first started teaching, I taught in elementary school. So I'm 36 years old. I'm from a generation where I'm not old, but I'm old enough that I grew up without the internet as a constant access, without consistent access. So I grew up, really, I think I was in grade 6, maybe grade 7, when high speed finally became a thing. And when you know this, if you remember the internet, high speed, before there was high speed, the internet was a chore. I mean, it took a long time, and people used it for email and things like that. And it had certain purposes that were really convenient. But this idea that you just kind of go Google things and find them out and whatever, I mean, it took a long time for these websites to load and stuff. So it wasn't even really faster. I mean, you could go to the library, use the Dewey Decimal System, be in that category, and you could probably find your answers faster than the internet. And the internet didn't have as many authoritative sources on it there. Not all of these libraries and museums and publishers had put all these digital copies. So it was kind of the Wild West anyway. So you weren't really sure what you were going to get. So, excuse me, I grew up learning how to research the normal way. Dewey Decimal System, library catalogs. Even when I went to university, I don't know if it's still the case, but this is in, I'm 36. I went to university when I was 18, whatever. This is 16, 17 years ago. Even when I started university, they were still teaching us how to use the scholarly journal portals and things like that had very particular cataloging processes and whatnot. And you had to be a part of the server to get on them and things. It wasn't widely available on Google Scholar or anything like that. So I grew up in the old school, between the old school and the new school. So I learned my research techniques from a time before the internet. I learned to read and write and everything before I learned to type because, that was the era I was born in. So when I went to use the internet, I brought with me this knowledge of how information works, and then I could use that. And I've used it successfully. And I noticed a problem when I started teaching. When I started teaching, I remember I had this French class. They were grade 5s and 6s, so they could use computers. They had used them. And I thought it was like a Friday or something like that. I'm going to do a little internet, scavenger hunt. Find me these answers. I'll give you a gold star, and then you can, have some free time before recess. That sort of thing you do as a teacher on Fridays. And the kids had a huge problem doing it. The questions were really simple. And I kept getting these answers from the kids, and they said, Mr. Hall, it was a French class. They said, Monsieur Hall, the computer's not giving me the right answer. And I remember thinking to myself, what? The computer's not giving you the right answer? I'm so confused at that statement. What do you mean the computer's not giving you the right answer? You're supposed to look up the topic, read what it gives you, and then find the answer in there. They had no conception of this. They had no conception. And it was an awakening for me, and I realized, this is a generation that's grown up with iPads and Google phones and whatever, and everything's an app. And they voice to text or whatever, and they're just told answers by things from Siri or whatever, and they take that as truth. And they don't know how to look things up. They didn't know how to look things up because they never learned how to look things up through the Dewey Decimal System in the library because they were never taught it. Because why would they? Because it's the internet age. They don't know how to research. There's a real danger in this. I would never trust an AI. I would never trust an AI bot to give me an answer without looking at the answer. I would only ever use an AI bot thing, again, if I was trying to synthesize some information to figure out a point of an article or something like that. But I would never trust it blindly. I would never say, I'd like to learn the teachings of the Catholic Church. I'm going to go look it up on AI. I would never do that. Because I know how this technology works. And I know that you can get modernism from something called Catholic Answers AI. Maybe it should be called Modernist Answers. And so I'm never going to trust that. But there's this whole generation of young people who have grown up with this stuff, who have no research skills at all. They don't know how to read books. They don't know how to write essays. They don't know how to do any of this stuff. The education systems are a complete disaster. They've grown up asking Google or Siri to give them answers since they were 6 years old. And now they're going to go on an AI bot and get modernist answers? This is a bad, bad thing. There's a huge potential for consequences here. There really is. And it's not that AI per se is evil, but it's just that this technology presents an occasion for stupidity. It presents an occasion for sin, really. I mean, modernism is a sin. Liberalism is a sin. Modernism is a sin, as the popes have told us. Heresy is a sin. So if you're going to be getting these heretical answers, I mean, this is a problem. And you're going to be feeding this beast. You're going to be feeding the beast. I mean, people should be learning the faith in the ways that are tried and true. I mean, I understand that this is convenient, but, putting the debate about video games aside, I would never train my kids. We don't have video games, but let's just say I thought they were fine. I think they're lame. But anyway, let's just say, I had no problem with my kids playing whatever video game. Okay, fine. I would never say, hey, I'm going to invent I don't know. What is it? I don't even know what a popular game is anymore. I played Crash Bandicoot as a kid on PlayStation. So that just shows you how much I know about video games. Super Mario? Is Super Mario still a thing? People play Call of Duty? I don't know. Let's just say I'm going to make a Super Mario Teaches the Catechism. I would never in a million years have my kids train for their first communion with Super Mario Teaches the Catechism. Like, do I have to explain why I wouldn't do that? I don't think I have to explain that. I think people would understand, well, that's just stupid. This is really no different. You get the TikTok generation to type into Catholic Siri or Catholic Hey Google or whatever it's called, or Catholic Alexa from Amazon or whatever they're called, and give me the answer. And then, oh, the internet told me it must be true. I guess I'm a modernist now. This is I'm sorry, but this is really irresponsible. I think this is really bad. I don't think AI is, I think Christopher Check is correct that there are no bad things, but bad uses of good things. But I do think that AI, it's kind of like, I kind of use this gun control analogy. It's like, I'm not for gun control, but I think a reasonable person can make the argument that we could probably have bylaws about what sort of unstable explosives people are allowed to have in their garages based on the potential of user error. So you don't want to have what are some explosives like nitroglycerin or something? You don't want to have a guy having these crazy explosives just chilling in his garage, and then it gets knocked off the shelf and, half of the block is blown off the map. You can probably say, I'm not for gun control, but at the same time, maybe certain explosives or weapons could be regulated. I mean, I think you could make that argument without being a Marxist. You know what I mean? I think this is kind of an example like that. It's like, listen, I'm all for using technology, but this one has the potential to destroy the whole world in the sense that this AI thing, we don't even understand how this works fully yet. We can't be sure of the type of information that's going to be given. Even in these early days, there's already been these huge gaffes where there's this confusion about, is the priest giving absolution? Is this a modernist answer coming through with the death penalty that's completely ignorant of how the levels of dogma work, which is basic Catholicism 101 and all pre-conciliar manuals? I mean, there are massive issues with how this has already been used. And the fact that Catholic Answers is going to feed the beast of the TikTok generation who's addicted to technology and thinks that they can proof text every important question on life by asking Siri, and they're going to give people more reasons to be on their screens longer rather than picking up a book, and they're going to not be able to vet whether or not the information is really true or not because it's just this sort of, this hydra of limbs reaching around the internet, finding answers and putting them together into this modernist synthesis. And there's really no way to correct this in real time because it's a machine. And it's not even as good as the public display of the faith through the radio, where at least that's public and we have it on record and we can correct this thing publicly. But this has none of those checks and balances. This is wrong. AI is not evil, but using it for Catholic apologetics is evil. And I cannot support this. Anyway, that's my answer. That's my answer about Catholic Answers, modernist answers, through their fake AI priest. I made a lot of friends today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Kennedy Report. Until next time, God bless you all.